The first time I met Clara, she was strutting into the lecture hall, heels clicking loudly on the tiled floor. Her face glowed with makeup that must have taken an hour to perfect, her nails shone bright red, and her perfume announced her presence long before she spoke. Everyone called her Slay Queen. She wasn't shy about it, either. She basked in the attention, flipping her long, shiny braids over her shoulder as she passed. But beneath all the glamour, Clara had a secret. A big one. It was during the end of semester exams when everything came out. The lecturer, Mr. Ajayi, handed out the question papers with his usual serious face. The class was quiet, except for the sound of papers flipping and pens scratching. I was sitting right behind Clara. I saw her pause at question 3, her pen hovering in midair. Her shoulders tensed. The question was simple: list 3 of your favorite meals and explain how to prepare 3 of them. Clara quickly scribbled something, then paused again. I leaned forward a bit, curious. Her first answer was clear. Shawarma. Next, she wrote fried rice and chicken sauce. But then, she just froze. Minutes ticked by, and the exam hall grew quieter. Clara's breathing became heavy. She started fidgeting, chewing on her pen cap. I was trying to focus on my own paper, but I couldn't stop glancing at her. Suddenly, she scratched out all her answers with thick, angry strokes. She leaned over the paper and wrote, hot water, tea, and pap. I almost burst out laughing. Tea. Pap. It didn't match her image at all. Clara, the queen of selfies and expensive wigs, admitting her favorite meals were the simplest things anyone could make. It didn't make sense. After the exam, I couldn't resist asking her about it. Clara, I said, catching up with her outside, why did you change your answer? You love shawarma and fried rice. I've seen you post about them 100 times. She rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically. Babe, leave me, Joe. You won't understand. But I did understand. Clara wasn't fooling anyone. She didn't know how to cook. It was one of those things people whispered about her. She had admitted once during a casual conversation that she never stayed in the kitchen when her mother cooked. It's not my thing, she had said with a laugh, brushing off the topic. Still, the reality of it didn't fully hit me until that exam. Clara couldn't explain how to make her favorite meals because she had no idea how they were prepared. She always looked perfect, her nails always done, her skin glowing like she lived in a skincare advert. But she couldn't peel yam, boil rice, or fry plantain without burning it. Things got more complicated during our final year at university. Clara had started dating Peter, a rich guy from town. He was handsome, charming, and crazy about her. Everyone envied her. She posted pictures of them on dates, at fancy restaurants, beach resorts, and luxury hotels. But Clara had a fear she couldn't shake off. She confided in me one night during a girls' hangout. I like Peter, she said, her voice unusually quiet, but I don't think I can marry him. I raised an eyebrow. Why not? She hesitated, then sighed. I can't cook. What if he finds out? Guys like girls who can cook. My mom always says, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. But I believe a man needs a classy, presentable lady. I tried not to laugh. Clara, you can learn. Cooking isn't rocket science. Just ask your mom or watch YouTube videos. She shook her head. You don't get it. I hate the kitchen. The heat, the smell, the noise. I can't deal. And even if I wanted to learn, it's too late. Peter already thinks I'm this perfect woman. If he sees me struggling to fry an egg, it's over. I didn't know what to say. For the first time, Clara didn't sound like the confident slay queen everyone knew. She sounded scared. A few months later, Peter proposed. He went all out, hiring a private chef, renting a rooftop venue, and presenting her with a diamond ring that could blind you in the sunlight. Clara said yes, of course. Her Instagram blew up with congratulations. But when I called her to celebrate, she didn't sound happy. Peter wants me to meet his family next weekend, she said, her voice trembling. His mom wants me to cook something traditional for them. Okay, so what's the problem? I asked, even though I already knew. Are you deaf? She snapped. I said cook. What do I do? I sighed. Clara, you can't avoid this forever. Just learn something simple. Maybe jollof rice or egusi soup. I can help you. She groaned. You don't get it, babe. If I mess up, I'll embarrass myself and Peter. I can't do this. Despite her protest, Clara went ahead with the visit. She wore her best Ankara dress, applied flawless makeup, and carried herself with her usual confidence. But beneath the surface, she was a mess. She called me in a panic the night before, begging for a quick recipe. I walked her through how to make jollof rice over the phone. It's not that hard, I said, trying to sound encouraging. Just follow the steps. The next day, she put on a brave face and entered Peter's family kitchen. I wasn't there, but I heard the story later. Clara had mixed up the baking powder and sugar while cooking the rice. By the time she realized her mistake, it was too late. The rice tasted like dessert. When they sat down to eat, Mom took one bite and frowned. Mother raised her eyebrows and asked why the meal tasted so strange. Clara forced a nervous laugh and said, "Oh, Mama, it's the tomatoes. The ones I bought were too sour, so I had to adjust with a little sugar." Her voice wavered, but she plastered on her brightest smile, hoping they would believe her. Peter's younger sister jokingly asked why the rice tasted like dessert. Clara shot back. You know how some people like experimenting in the kitchen? I thought I'd try something new, like sweet jollof. It's trendy these days. She let out a forced laugh, hoping to appear confident. But instead of being impressed, Mother frowned. Clara's attempt to spin the failure as intentional only made things worse. Clara tried to explain, but her voice shook. She ended up running out of the dining room in embarrassment. Peter, who had always admired Clara's charm, began to see through her act. He knew her well enough to sense that she wasn't being honest. After the family dinner, he confronted her privately. Clara, just tell me the truth. Did you even know how to cook this meal? He asked, his tone serious. Clara hesitated for a moment but stuck to her story. Of course, I did. It's just the ingredients that messed me up. You saw how hard I worked in the kitchen. That night, Clara called me, sobbing uncontrollably. I messed up, babe. Peter, Mom hates me. I can't do this anymore. I felt bad for her, but I didn't know how to help. Clara, maybe this is a sign. If you want this relationship to work, you need to stop pretending. Just tell Peter the truth. He might surprise you. She sniffled. You think so? I know so, I said. Clara actually didn't listen. She sat Peter down the next day and lied that she was tensed up. That's why she was not able to make a tasty meal for his family. While Peter didn't argue further that night, the seed of doubt was planted. Clara's inability to own up to her mistakes made him question other aspects of their relationship. Peter laughed. Clara, I don't care about that. If you want to learn, I'll teach you. She and Peter got married the following year. They moved into a beautiful house, and Clara continued living her glamorous life, posting pictures, attending events, and enjoying the luxuries Peter provided. But behind the scenes, cracks began to show. Peter started coming home late, often complaining about how disorganized the house was. The hired house help struggled to keep up because Clara refused to lift a finger. She wouldn't clean, cook, or even supervise. "That's what we pay her for," she'd say, dismissively. Their house help, Amoka, was a quiet and hardworking young woman. She didn't complain even when Clara backed orders at her or made her redo tasks she thought weren't done properly. Amoka not only managed the house but also began cooking Peter's favorite meals, better than any restaurant could. Slowly Peter found himself spending more time in the kitchen, chatting with Amoka while she worked. She was polite, respectful, and knew how to make the home feel warm and inviting. One evening, after a particularly tense argument with Clara about the state of the house, Peter walked into the kitchen and found Amoka plating his dinner. As he ate, he couldn't help but compare her calm, nurturing demeanor to Clara's distant and uninterested attitude. It wasn't just about the chores, it was about the effort and care Amoka put into everything she did. Peter began confiding in her, sharing his frustrations and feeling heard for the first time in months. Clara, oblivious to what was happening, continued living her carefree life, ignoring the growing distance between them. The final straw came during a family gathering. Clara had promised to help prepare the meals but spent the day doing her nails instead, leaving Amoka to handle everything alone. When Peter's mother asked Clara why she wasn't in the kitchen, Clara laughed and said, "That's what Amoka is for." The disrespect didn't sit well with Peter or his family. Clara refused to have children. Every time the topic came up, she would wave it off, saying, "Peter, take me to Canada first. I want my kids to be Canadian citizens." It became her mantra, and she would often compare him to other men. "Your mates are relocating their wives. Look at Toby's wife, she's in Toronto now." She'd shout, ignoring Peter's protest that they couldn't afford such a move yet. Her demands became louder and more frequent, creating a chasm between them. Peter grew tired of Clara's constant nagging and lack of compromise. A month later, Peter told Clara he wanted a divorce. Clara said, "You are joking. You cared more about your appearances than building a real family," he said. One evening, Clara came home from a salon appointment to find a white envelope on their bed. Inside were divorce papers. Shocked, she called Peter, but his phone was switched off. She waited for hours, hoping he'd come home, but he didn't. The next day, she learned the truth. Peter had moved out. Rumors spread that he had been spending more and more time with Amoka, the house help. It wasn't long before he married Amoka, a woman who not only cared for his home but also shared his values. Clara, left heartbroken, realized too late that beauty and glamour weren't enough to keep a marriage alive. Not long after, Clara's worst fear was confirmed. Peter had married Amoka, who was already pregnant with his child. They relocated to Abuja, where Peter secured a better job. Clara was devastated. She tried reaching out to Peter, but he ignored her calls. Her once perfect life crumbled as Peter left her with nothing. She was forced to leave their rented house when the landlord seized her belongings due to months of unpaid rent. Standing on the street with just a suitcase, Clara realized she had no one to turn to. Clara eventually moved in with a young man she met at a club. He claimed to be an international businessman, but everyone in the neighborhood knew he was a Yahoo boy. Desperate and with nowhere else to go, Clara clung to him. Over the next 2 years, she gave birth to 2 boys for him. Life was hard, but Clara convinced herself it was better than being alone. She ignored the whispers and warnings about his shady activities. One fateful morning, the police raided their house. They found laptops, fake documents, and stacks of cash hidden in the ceiling. Clara was dragged out in her nightgown, screaming and crying. "I don't know him. I'm not his wife. I'm a divorcee," she yelled as the officers pushed her into the van. The neighbors watched in silence, some shaking their heads, others whispering about how far she had fallen. Clara's glamorous life was now a distant memory. From being the queen of social media and the envy of many, she was now in a cell, sharing a space with women who didn't care about her manicured nails or designer bags. As she sat on the cold floor, cradling her head in her hands, she couldn't help but think about Peter and Amoka, now happily raising their family in Abuja. She had lost everything, and for the first time, Clara realized how her choices had led her to this point.